Cold Front, the coolest gun in the game. And unfortunately this year it's been nerfed simply because Bungie decided not to offer certain perks on the gun. But we are going to offset that with a little bit of creativity. And it's still a pretty great gun. Now the one that I'm using is Sunset. It's 2 years old. Sadness. So it has a perk on it that you can't get anymore. But the gun I'm going to suggest this season is pretty much the same. The only difference is that you have to keep your ability storage with the new one if you really want to reap the rewards. So let's take a look at what we have. My old Cold Front. This thing has a full bore, tac mag, feeding frenzy, and kill clip, and I absolutely loved it when I first got it, but then of course sunsetting happened and I couldn't really use it much anymore. This one has a reload speed masterwork. I never even masterworked this thing. This is insane. But honestly, it feels great. This is one SMG that I never think, man, this thing is hard to get like good target acquisition, or the reload is really frustrating. Like none of the things that I struggle with so many SMGs over are an issue for this gun. So I know from past experience that we can just totally go with full bore. We don't really have to do anything else. Now, I will say I did test Hammerforge, which was completely unnecessary. Really, this has less range than full bore. And then this actually removes a little bit of stability and handling speed, but you really can't tell the difference. Like, you don't need them. And if I added one over the other, I would add stability over handling on this particular gun. And so you can totally go full bore on it. It's just an excellent kinetic SMG. Unfortunately, this little guy right here is no longer available. Feeding Frenzy. Bungie removed it. Oh, man. Actually, kill clip's not available anymore either. Okay, let's just take a look at what they currently offer. Looking at d2gunsmith.com, you can see what used to be available and what currently is available. And I've had questions about this before. So just to go over the key really quickly, things that are highlighted in red are preferred by PvPers. Things that are highlighted in blue are preferred by PvEers. And things that are highlighted in gold are really the S tier perks. These are what everybody likes. And if you know anything about barrels, you can tell that there's a hodgepodge here. And I don't think anyone really selected these or knew what should go on this gun. They pretty much just got their guns and vaulted them. So there's nothing in common here with all of these things. They're kind of all over the place. The next thing you need to know is that the things that are gray are currently not available. See, it says this perk currently cannot roll on this weapon. Sadness, because this is my top tier perk in this entire column and we can't get it. And the ones that are white are currently available. So let's talk about this gun. As I stated, I'm going with full bore, and it's funny because no one picks full bore on this. As you can see, it's just gray. It's not preferred by anybody. But after testing it, I can tell you 100% full bore is magnificent. Go with the extra range. And you'll see right up here, we have 60 range if we pop full bore on here. Now let's go with Hammerforge. That takes us down to 55, so that's -5 range. Polygonal is one that I tried, and it really didn't make a difference, but that takes us down to 46. Small bore is not too bad with 52. I don't know why we would use extended barrel, but I mean, I bet you anything this was the best range barrel that people had on their gun, and so they went with this. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Chambered compensator, I'm still trying to find a reason to have that. I did test Arrowhead Break, and I'm really happy to see that this is a white perk that nobody's picking it, because you don't need it. It's completely a waste. I tested an Arrowhead Break gun, and its recoil's not an issue. It is simply not. Neither is handling. So you're not really going to notice a difference with this, which means you don't really need to go with corkscrew rifling either, because it gives you a little bit of range, but you've got, again, stability and handling. Now, I'm not going to argue with stability. I did test fluted barrel, and I didn't really feel this was necessary either. Now, see, it gives you a little bump of stability +5, and it gives you +13 handling. Again, handling is not the issue on this gun. I will not complain about stability on an SMG, though. Now, you don't need to go for stability on this gun, But this kind of leads into the discussion of which mag I went for and why. And there's really two mags that you can choose from that are going to serve you well. So we're going to pop on our full bore, which takes us to max range for the barrels. And probably the reason why a lot of people don't pick this is because it gives you -6 stability. You can see the red up there on the chart. And -5 handling, which honestly, we don't care about the handling. We do care a little bit about the stability. Not a big deal, but it's still helpful. So flared magwell, let's talk about this one first. This is my number 2 pick for mags. Now the reason why is because this actually has the best reload speed, and this gun needs serious help with reload. It really does. It's not terrible. I've shot worse, but I like fast loading SMGs. It is what it is. And flared magwell is always a great choice for SMGs. However, since we're taking the hit on stability here, and I just am biased towards tac mag, we can get +5 stability back, which essentially zeroes out the deficit that we get with full bore. We get +1 in the mag, and then we'll get +9 reload speed. Now with flared magwell, you get +14 reload speed, which is really nice, and you get +5 stability. But we're kind of just going with the +1 in the mag. So, but as you can see, I mean, these are both great mags. I'm going to go attack mag, but either one of these could really go on a god roll. And honestly, if you could get both of them and have the option, that would be even better. So there we go. We have full bore, and we have attack mag. Or flared is fine as well. Now for the perks, this is what really breaks my heart. The only really great perk in this column is Feeding Frenzy. Now you might be saying, but Diver, Dynamic Sway, that's on there. Well, yes, Dynamic Sway is on there, and what I have to say is this. If you have a gun where arrowhead break actually makes a difference, then Dynamic Sway will also be useful. Now, depending on what you're going for with reload and damage, because sometimes you have to pick and choose your perks to make a gun feel just right, you may pick either Dynamic Sway or arrowhead. But since recoil is not an issue, we don't really need Dynamic Sway. So what does Dynamic Sway do? It improves accuracy and stability while continuously holding down the trigger. I had no issue with that stuff while holding down the trigger on this gun. It's just fun. It destroys. It greatly increases accuracy after sustained fire for 0.6 seconds or 0.6 of a second, almost negating the effects of bloom. It adds 9 stability over time, and air accuracy is still bad unless used alongside Icarus Grip. If you're PvPing, quick draw may be really useful. I would argue that this is a great option if you're going into PvP. It really is. However, if you are going to do sustained fire, you're still going to want to go with something for reload. But generally with PvP, you're doing bursts and you have time to swap weapons, and quick draw is probably the best perk. But for PvE, I chose to go with Surplus because I needed something to replace Feeding Frenzy. Again, this is actually a major disappointment for me. So I went Surplus. Now, this is the funny thing after our discussion about handling and stability. So Surplus increases handling, reload speed, and stability for each fully charged ability. Now, my goal in this column is to replace Feeding Frenzy, which is no longer available, so I want reload speed. And the only perk in this column that really gives me that super fast reload is Surplus. As long as I'm not using grenades or rifts. Now, even throwing one grenade out will make this gun feel quite different. Like, you notice you're not getting the reload. And that's the drawback of Surplus, but honestly, I'd rather have the reload benefits of Surplus than go with something else, because 9 times out of 10, I'm going to have those full abilities while using this SMG, and I'm going to take advantage of the reload. Surplus definitely made enough of a difference for me to opt for that over any of these other not so great perks. Oh, the other one that you see is Subsistence. No one's really picked that either. It's still gray. I did test a really good roll. I think I did Polygonal with Tac Mag, Subsistence, and Rampage. And honestly, I didn't really like Subsistence. Even when I worked slowly through a lost sector, I was just really paying attention to the ammo being thrown back into the bag. And it does happen, But at the end of the day, I really needed that fast reload, and Subsistence just didn't do it for me. Going to the final column, I tested a surrounded weapon, and I was completely unimpressed with surrounded. Honestly, I felt no difference in this. No difference whatsoever. It just didn't seem to slay. It was just kind of a non-existent perk. And this wasn't a lost sector. Like, it should have procced, but it just didn't feel like it was doing anything. So if you have surrounded, I would just say no to this. All the way, no more surrounded. And people pick Thresh. If you're picking Thresh on a gun, I mean, Thresh, guys, learn how to use a charge with light mod. Like, seriously, do a charge with light build and just don't use Thresh on a gun. There are better ways to get your super, and it's not by shooting things, even though Bungie has changed that for PvP, but that's another thing. All right, so that leaves us with 2 perks that are really worth it. One for all, I'm not. It's too much thinking with one for all. I want to just be able to concentrate on shooting things, and that's it, right? I've had a lot of people say, well, you know, I don't like doing this because it requires me to think, and I agree. I get into like a ritual with how I play my Warlock because my abilities all feed each other, so there's a flow that I play in that I'm like basically trained to go with. But when I'm shooting a gun, I don't want a ritual. I just want to shoot the gun and have things work. And with one for all, you gotta kind of make sure you're spraying and praying and hitting multiple targets. And I'd much rather just kill things. That leaves us with Swashbuckler and Rampage. And it's interesting that Swashbuckler is a gray perk here. And honestly, I think most people tend to go with Rampage over Swash. And I did have one person say, well, I like Swashbuckler better. And I don't know why. And they couldn't really tell me other than it just feels better. And you know what? That's incredibly legit. That is a great argument. If it feels better to you, go for it. Because really, it comes down to this being a video game, and you need to just have a good time and enjoy your weapons. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to talk about which one is actually better. As you can see with Swashbuckler, this weapon gains increased damage from melee kills and kills with this weapon. I love Swashbuckler with Stasis Hunter because I do like a melee shuriken build, so I'm constantly getting shuriken kills. I could have Swash times 5 for days, which gives me a 33.3% damage buff. And Swashbuckler is on a timer. It's 4.5 seconds. And no matter how many kills you get, once that 4.5 seconds is up, Swash has gone and you start over. You have to, you know, re-earn that buff, and then you have a 4.5 second timer again. Rampage works a little different, and there's a trade-off. So remember we had 4.5 seconds for Swashbuckler? We have a 3.5 second timer for Rampage. So why would people pick Rampage? First, Rampage kills with this weapon temporarily grants increased damage, and it stacks to 3. Now, if you noticed, Rampage times 3 is the same as Swashbuckler. We have 33%. Swashbuckler is 33.3, which it's not really that big of a difference, let's be real. And the duration of Rampage is 3.5 seconds, and all stacks disappear once the timer expires. But here's the thing. When I was testing Rampage this week, as long as I get kills, it keeps going. It's like it just resets the timer. It doesn't disappear. The only time Rampage disappears is if 3.5 seconds go by without me killing anything. And then all of a sudden I have to get more kills to get Rampage again. So this is just a really top tier damage perk. It does the same damage as Swashbuckler, except if you're killing mobs and you're constantly getting kills, you're gonna constantly have Rampage. It's such a great perk. Now, you're usually gonna have waves of enemies, and you might have a couple seconds between the last dude that you shot and the next dude that you're gonna see that you can shoot. So how do you spread that out? You do have the option of going with Rampage Spec now. So remember, Swashbuckler is 4.5 seconds and Rampage is 3.5 seconds. This will end once the timer ends. The timer resets with this, but you can have the same timer as Swashbuckler. It works like Rampage, but it's 4.5 seconds without getting a kill. If you go with the Rampage Spec. Boom. Rampage Spec. So this increases the duration of Rampage to 4.5 seconds. just like Swashbuckler. The last thing for this gun, and I don't have this, we're running out of time, guys. We have a few days this season, but what I really want is a range Masterwork. I currently have stability on mine, but I want the range Masterwork. And if we did times 10, that would give us 8 additional points for range for a total of 68. It would just be stupid. And you could totally get away with it too. Like I said, you don't really need you don't need handling, and the stability isn't really too big of an issue. You have plenty of stability on this gun to make it feel good. At only 12, it really doesn't need it. Just go for full range on this thing, and you've got the god roll right there. This is an excellent gun. So let me know what you got in the comments below, and tell me what you think of it and what you wish was different. That's always a great question to ask yourself if you don't like a gun, because you can make almost any gun feel wonderful. If you'd like to support this channel, liking and commenting on the videos tells YouTube to share these videos with others who may find them useful. If you'd like to provide monetary support to help keep this channel up and running, visit my locals and Subscribe Star communities.